welcome to another episode of Unfiltered STEM. I'm here with Lily and Fiona, and today we are tackling one question and one question only. Lily, take it away. What is it?
Okay, so today's question is about um, not getting a job that you applied for. So, if you don't get a job that you applied for, how do you move on?
So, I'll kick this one off because I was gutted and also really confused. I, for those of you who don't know, if this is your first time joining, if you've never encountered me in your life, welcome. I used to do my degree is business management marketing. I'm now a software engineer, so it's been a wild ride, but I was obviously applying for quite relevant jobs at the time. And I'd put my CV up on like your LinkedIn, your Indeed, all the rest of it, and it got picked up by a really, really lovely recruiter. Stand by her; she was great. She really like helped me prep for the interviews, told me all the stuff. She was like really honest about the salary, which I think is actually a little bit rare. A lot of times recruiters are sort of dodging it a little bit because they don't know. But she was really, really good. And she queued me up for this one. She was like, okay, you're a grad. They want a grad. It's a marketing company. You've got a good marketing degree. It was I'm not going to name the company for obvious reasons, but they dealt in sample marketing. So when you get like an online order like ASOS or something, or like HelloFresh, sometimes you get a little sample of something and you want to try it, and it's kind of which target market do you want to go for, who do you want to partner with. And I focused on diversification in my dissertation, which I got first in. So actually, for me, it was quite a good one to sort of like figure out the alignment of different products altogether. So I had an amazing first interview. I had an even better second interview, like genuinely was like, okay, well, how am I going to get to this place? What's the commute going to be like? Probably going to need to learn to drive because it was a little distance at the time. Um, and like I was so confident that this was it because I'd seen a couple of jobs and I'd gotten a couple of jobs which I was like, oh no. So I'd actually turned down, I think, two jobs by this point that I'd got to the final stages on to like sort of give it a go because I think when you finish your degree, you do give it, you kind of apply to loads of stuff. And I got rejected from this one. And I just remember being so, so, so baffled like, what on earth? And the feedback from the recruiter, this lovely recruiter, she was saying, I don't really understand it. Like, let me know if this makes any sense to you. But I'm making the phone sign for anyone who's not watching. I feel kind of goofy now. Um, she's like, they basically said that they didn't think you wanted to be a marketer. They didn't think you wanted to be in marketing. Like, you should go and try something else. I was like, what on earth? I told them how much I love ASOS and how I love this sort of concept. And it's basically like getting like free gifts for stuff. And obviously everyone's going to be really excited. But I was genuinely really excited for this job. And I was so, so confused. So confused, in fact, that I went to the pub to like have a commiseration drink, which I never, ever, ever do. And so confused that quite a few drinks in, I pressed easy apply on LinkedIn to a job at Capgemini Engineering, where I became a software engineer. And I just sort of kept going on that. So I don't recommend drinking your problems away. That's not a good way to deal with the rejection. But the sort of sting of rejection and like the feedback that at one point seemed really weird. Now I should send the person who gave that feedback like flowers because they've set me on a whole completely different career path. And I think it's such a I would never have done that without that push from that sting of rejection. Like I'm such a I'm a really stubborn person and I'm so like I will do stuff out of spite. So out of spite, I applied for that job and did all the like the week long application process and all of that and got through and did really well and was so stubborn that I completed my apprenticeship. You know, I've stayed in software. I've been in software for nearly 4 years now, which is wild. So it's actually probably been 4 years since I had that feedback, and my life is so different now. So actually, sometimes you treat it as a turning point. Listen to the feedback you get. It might take you to some crazy places.
So picking up on feedback, my first rejection was probably a good experience to get feedback from. So when I was in my final year of uni, did what everyone else did, applied to grad schemes for all the big companies, and I got an assessment centre interview for a drinks company, so like the food and drink industry. And I remember, same as you, being like quite excited for the interview. Like I got a new outfit because I'd never had to wear anything professional before. I had to get the train to another city. Like it was quite a big day. And I remember getting to the assessment centre, and it's like one of the first times, if you've never done an assessment centre before, if they still do them in person, I'll make myself sound old now. If they
Hmm.
still do them in person, you end up in a room with like at least 10 other people, probably close to your age if it's a grad job, close to your like position out of uni. And they're all really smart. And it's quite daunting the first time, but I'm also quite outspoken once I'm comfortable in places. So I kind of thought, right, I've got it down. Like I know what I'm about. And in all of the group situations, I remember being a bit like, I'd researched the company, the times when I spoke up, I knew exactly what I was talking about, I knew the products, I had like statistics to hand, and everyone kind of just looked at me a bit funny. And it was the first feeling of like, is this going right? Is it not? And when we had the one-on-one sections, I felt quite confident, did all the presentations they had us doing, and at the end of it, I came out thinking, right, some not great points, but overall pretty good. And at that point, I don't think I'd ever been turned down from anything before. Not that I'd applied for things, but I don't think I'd actually experienced it before. And it was the first like proper interview I'd ever done for like my big girl jobs. um, and I remember just waiting to hear back and waiting and waiting. And I think it was about 2 weeks before I heard back and feeling like, oh, this has been quite a while. And when they called me back, the feedback they gave me was that I was too quiet in the group situations, which was quite funny to me at the time because that was what I told them in the kind of final interview section of the day. They said, "How do you think you've done today?" And I said, felt like I was maybe didn't speak up as much as I could have, but there were a few people in the room who were being bulldozers, who were talking over everyone, and I didn't want to do that to other people. So it was kind of funny that the feedback they gave to me was what I had told them, which hand in hand goes with the other bit of feedback they gave me was I'm very self-aware. So that's just quite funny. But the lesson learned here was when I got the assessment centre for my current job, I remember, again, it's quite daunting. I travelled from Glasgow all the way down to Surrey to do it. And again, you're in a room of like at least 10 people just as smart as you are. And I remember feeling really intimidated by everyone else in the room. They spoke multiple languages, or they were talking about the private schools they went to, or they were all from the area or knew people in the company already. And I was going, well, that game's a bogey. This is it. We're not doing it. So at that point, I think I like let go a little bit and just went, right, I'll just be me. And I remember in the group situations where you get a presentation to do or a poster to come up with or a product to sell, and the group I was in were kind of just not really being very decisive and saying, no, but we can't get to a point, we can't get an answer. And I remember going, look, we need to have something. I don't care if it's rubbish, we need to have an answer to present. And I was the one going, right, we have 5 minutes left, we need something. What do you have? And I was being quite assertive, mostly because I just wanted to go home. Um, so I was really quite assertive. The like one-on-one presentations I'd worked really hard on, I'd prepared it beforehand, but again, I was just quite like, if the answer's wrong, it's wrong. I feel like I've lost it already, may as well go for it. And that's the job I got in the end. So obviously, take out the part where I thought I'd lost it and I hadn't got it, which turns out is actually quite a common theme when people say they think
I
they've
did the
lost
same
it.
thing. I did
Same
the
with
same
like,
thing. I
same,
cried in one interview and thought I'd failed the entire thing. So the next one I
yeah.
was like so quiet.
But
But
sometimes it's once you think you don't have it, especially people say it with like driving tests as well, you get more comfortable and then all of a sudden you're actually being more yourself and people can see that and people could see I was actually quite assertive and could like see past the superficial part of the task and I could figure out what the interviewers were actually looking for in a person. Like they weren't looking for what I thought to budget for this specific project. They wanted to see could I provide a value based on information given in a certain amount of time? Could I lead a group of people? And I'd kind of worked that out from right, they don't really care about this project. Like it's not something they work on. If I can show that I can follow directions and I can do it better than everyone else in the room and do it kind of loudly, that's what they're after. And that worked. So, the first time getting rejection wasn't great, didn't know what to do with that for the first few weeks. Had a bit of a grump about it probably, but I did manage to use it. And also, they called me less than 12 hours after I got home the next day to tell me I'd got the job. So that was also a great sign.
Yeah, it's always good when that when that happens. I think a lot of what you said like resonates with me. I think that um knowing that you've like been yourself in an interview is really important. Obviously, it's great if you get the job, but it's like equally as important if you don't, because I think it can really help. It's definitely helped me when I haven't been successful in interview situations. It just stops you from like ruminating as much or like overthinking as much about like what you said or, you know, what you did wrong. Um, and I think if you're if you're as much of yourself as you can be in the interview, then it's harder to overthink it as much. Like there's less regret, you know, there's less like worry and thought. Yeah, I think that's usually where it comes from. And at least for me, like after an interview, like after a rejection, you start sort of overthinking and thinking like, what did I do wrong? What's wrong with me? Like, what do I need to do different next time so this doesn't happen again? I don't feel like awful. And I think that all comes from that feeling if you're like, actually, like, I am capable, I have the skills, I have the experience. It just wasn't, this just wasn't the right job for me right now. Um, but it's so
Especially
difficult. Yeah.
because, like, if you've got an interview, you have everything on
Mm.
paper. They just need to see
Yeah.
how you are as a fit.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's so difficult not to take it personally at that point because you're like, as you say, like at that point they're just sort of picking between like little hairs between people
Mm.
basically. Um, but you know, equally it can swing one way, it can swing the other, right?
Well, so I think it's the more yourself you are, the more it's easier to find the place that fits you.
Yeah.
Because like an interview's like two ways. Everyone always forgets it's two ways. Like when I'm going to a place, I am asking questions about like what's your pay structure like? What do you do for women to make sure that they're paid equally? What do you do in terms of like your employee resource groups? What like you know things like that. I am because I've got to work there. I've got to spend 7, 8 hours a day there every
Hmm.
day of the week. You know, I see those people more than I see my partner or my friends.
Yeah.
I'm interviewing them, right? They've got
Yeah.
to impress me
Yeah.
too.
And if they
But
don't pick you because you ask those questions in the interview, then
great, I don't want to be
actually
there.
you've done yourself a favor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we actually had I'm gonna Susie one of the alumni on the board miss you Susie we did a podcast episode about whether or not we wanted children, and we were warned not to do that one because other companies, if we were looking for a new job, might see it and might not give us a job in the future. And Susie's response, because she was the one talking about how she did want to have kids, her response was, well, I wouldn't want to work there anyway. And I think it's a case of being yourself and being rejected is so hard, but better to get rejected than for you to go to a place and actually they've been pretending or you have to pretend the whole time. Like that is so, so draining. So we've picked up on today that sometimes a rejection can actually just be redirection. A little bit woo woo, but sometimes everything does happen for a reason. So if you're doing the same thing and it's not working, maybe it's a point to consider, is this actually the right path for you? All of us have looked at jobs or positions or paths that weren't right for us in one way or another. And sometimes it's just telling, like, the rejection is somebody telling you this isn't right for you. That's not necessarily anything against you. It could just be that maybe you need something else. Maybe you're destined for a little bit better. We've also picked up on the fact that feedback can be really useful. Sometimes it's kind of rubbish, if I'm honest. And try not to take it all so personally. Sometimes it's really useful, it can be conducive. You know, if you're missing a certain skill on your CV, there's a lot of ways of getting that these days. So you can do a lot of online courses. You can sometimes shadow people, talk to mentors, and find the sort of skills that you'll need for that. And most importantly, you have to be yourself because this is the person that you're going to have to show up as every single day. If you show up putting a mask on, you're going to have to put that mask on for the rest of the time there. And that sounds knackering.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, thank you so much for listening. Any more questions for us, put them down in the comments, and we will see you again next time. Bye.